So just for the record, I talked to Wheeler Walker Jr.'s publicist.
Yeah.
And we are going to reschedule. So it'll be nice because I can't believe I lost all the audio for that. That sucks so fucking bad.
Yeah, I was getting kind of made fun of for talking in the background of it because they could hear me through the door.
Uh-huh.
And I was talking about, like, censorship is bullshit or whatever I said. Right when I opened the door, they're like, censorship is bullshit, huh? All right. I was like, I was on a call.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Plumbus Among Us, the rickest Rick and Morty podcast. My name is Brian, and with me, as always, is Jeff. Jeff, how you doing, my friend?
Doing well, thank you, and happy birthday to you, Brian, as we record this.
It is absolutely my birthday. I am like 37 today, so old. I'm okay with it, though. I enjoy being old. You can hear Jeff and I on the Nothing Important podcast, along with our friend Dave, where we talk to people more famous than we will ever be. People like Mike Rowe, Mike McKean, fucking Rick Astley, who is super awesome. Sorts of great people. You can find that on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you listen to podcasts, or at nothingimportantpodcast.com. And if you're into Better Call Saul, check us out on iTunes. Better Call Saul podcast called It's Saul Goodman. You can find that at saulgoodman.com, Google Play, or the TV Time app, which this show, Among Us, is also sponsored by TV Time. It's an app for your phone. You can converse, share, thumbs up, critique, all sorts of good stuff about your TV shows. There's literally thousands of TV shows on there. So why don't you download the TV Time app and chat with like-minded people about your favorite TV shows. But today we are talking about episode 303 of Rick and Morty, simply titled Pickle Rick!
Pickle Rick, indeed.
Yeah, it's just kind of fun to yell, and especially since I'm at work, I was inspired. By your tale of your coworkers overhearing you, so I decided to make sure that all the people involved with my work heard me.
You had a nice echo in the background there, too, so I'm sure that they heard that just as though it came from the bathroom or the elevator bay.
Well, the thing about it is, you know this, and I'm sure everybody could tell from my voice, is I'm naturally loud, and I can't help it.
Yes.
So when I get excited, I get super loud, and when I yell, I can yell really loud. So I'm sure people, like right now, I'm actually on a 23rd floor overlooking Chicago's Navy Pier, and I'm pretty sure a guy washing the window across the street from me probably heard me just yell, Pickle Rick. But that's okay. Let's chat about Pickle Rick. Jeff, what did you think of this episode? Did it live up to the hype and or expectations that everybody had?
I'd say yes and no. And the only no part would be because I don't think anyone knew where it was going. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure people had some preconceived notions about what exactly the hell was supposed to be going on. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, honestly, I don't even know what the hell was going on after watching it a couple of times.
Right.
But it was a crazy, intense episode in multiple ways, not only just the excellent violence and everything else that was going on murder-wise, mm-hmm. but the insight that came from the family going through therapy.
Right. It was actually, like, on the surface a lot deeper than what the premise of the show would lead you to believe.
Exactly, especially for an episode based around a person turning themselves into a pickle.
And I think that's actually the actual TV preview and description is just Pickle Rick. I'm pretty sure that's all it says. At least they're sticking with the theme. So let's talk about some things in the episode, and we will wrap this bitch up so we can get back to pretending like we're doing our jobs. Are you ready?
That sounds great.
All right. Some thought I had. Morty seems a little bit more paranoid this season than he has in the past two seasons. So he's like the opening where he's in the garage, and he just seems like he's paranoid about everything.
Well, I think he actually, having worked with Rick in his various nefarious adventures over the last few seasons, mm-hmm. is just kind of over it, and now is more protecting himself. It's very clear throughout the first 3 episodes here that he is very much over Rick's selfishness and the pieces that he, forces Morty into, and family, and the infinite family that are around, and just is just terribly selfish. So he's always looking out for, Rick hiding somewhere and waiting to turn invisible and fart on him, or whatever that might be.
Yeah, he's very guarded. But I guess it's not really Stockholm syndrome, but he's like almost captive by his own doing in a way, right?
Yeah, because he willingly joined and went along. Well, mildly willingly joined and went along. If you start at the beginning, and then was enjoying it for a while. But as he got a taste of Rick's life, being Rick and jumping interdimensionally, he's become, I don't know how to say it, weathered.
Yeah, there you go.
Because of the whole thing.
Yeah, and he's he's become very desensitized and even unamused. Like, first he was paranoid why Rick was calling him, and then when it revealed that Rick turned himself into a pickle, he was just kind of dealing with it and just why did you do this? Like a very unamused fashion, like a kid that would throw their food all over the kitchen or something. It's you're not really mad, you're just kind of befuddled as to what's going on.
Yeah, he was looking for the deeper meaning in it, where Rick was just telling him, take it for what it is. I can do this because I can, and no one else can, so that's why I did it, because I can. No one else can.
I'm pretty sure in the writer's room, somebody just threw out, Rick turns himself into blank, somebody yelled pickle, and then they just kind of went from there with the premise of the episode.
I could see that.
And then the next person was probably saying, why would Rick do that? And he's like, well, to get out of something with the family. Perfect. Counseling. They're going through divorce. Family. Yeah, and Jerry wasn't even invited to the counseling.
Exactly. Yeah, for a family counseling, Jerry wasn't there, who is kind of the stem of all of it, or at least it revolves around him. I mean, it's not necessarily Jerry's fault for the divorce, which we find out kind of as they dig into the family later. But it is kind of hilarious that the one member of the family that they're all complaining about isn't at the actual counseling session. But Chris Parnell did have a voice in there, I could tell. So he still got paid for this episode.
Right. Got to make that money, dude. Got to make that money. Rick also kind of gets outsmarted by Beth. He creates the contraption to drop the syringe into his pickle body, and Beth kind of outsmarts him and takes it away.
I think that has to do, I don't know if she was outsmarting him necessarily, but she realizes that he was trying to get out of something, so she was going to make him suffer for it. If he was really going to do that and screw them all over in this attempt to kind of quell all of the stuff that's going on. So she really did know that he was lying to her the whole time, but she just didn't want to admit it. Right.
Are there really YouTube videos of cats fighting cucumbers, or did they make that up?
No, if you can search YouTube all day long, Brian. There's videos of people
I wouldn't have a topic of discussion right now.
there's if you look online on YouTube and stuff, there's pictures of people, like a cat will be eating food and someone will put a cucumber on the ground behind it and it'll turn around and see it and it'll jump 3 feet in the air because it's so freaked out and run away. It was a thing a couple months ago online.
That's amazing.
I did want to point out when he was sitting there trying to figure out how to get out of the situation now that his syringe has been taken away to reverse it, that he was sitting there clicking and thinking with his trying to do that. That reminded me of an early Mr. Show episode where they're trying to figure out making change. I don't know if you've ever seen that one.
No.
But it's about 10 minutes of going all the way through the corporate ladder from a gas station up to the president of the company to the president of the United States about if they can make change for $1.
Is it all just when you have no idea what to do or you're super bored, you just sit there and make weird noises?
Yes, and then you call the person above you to try to get a decision. But realistically here for Rick and Morty, Rick is the pinnacle of person to him. So he wouldn't have anyone else to call.
True. The Rick is definitely displays overall in this episode, not even like going chronologically here, but overall in the episode, Rick is fantastic at building Rube Goldberg devices without opposable thumbs.
The whole sequence, as I sat and thought about it and watched it a couple of times, perplexed me. not that not that I can't suspend my disbelief that a pickle is doing these things, because everything's already ridiculous.
Right.
But the family has only been gone for a few minutes. Realistically, the rain starts after he gets rolled out into the driveway, and then he falls down into the sewer, finds the cockroach and splits its head open to try to control its brain, which also I had some things about that. But okay, so he now takes control of this cockroach. Good for him. He figured out how to do that. We cut back just for a few minutes at the therapist's office when they learn that their math teacher eats poop, and there's a bunch of other people who eat poop.
Yeah.
And then comes back, and yes, there's a ridiculous device that was only put together in minutes by him using a cockroach. And it also looked like it used other rat parts, too, like claws and such. Mm-hmm. So that means he would have had to, in that short period of time, killed a lot more rats in order to build his device before he finally killed another rat in order to make the device.
I didn't even catch that. I thought that was all cockroach parts.
No, look, there were claws and stuff when they're putting him together.
Oh, good call. Good call. That's probably one of those continuity things where they're like, or where they said to each other, let's just make this work and kind of not worry about how it happened.
And we also don't know how long the family was sitting there waiting to go in. Mm-hmm. So, if you go to a doctor's waiting room, sometimes you're there for 5 minutes, sometimes you're there for an hour. Mm-hmm. You don't know. I mean, I've never been to poop eating counseling before, so I don't know how long that takes.
What did you even think about that whole poop eating thing? I didn't like that.
It's kind of an easy out. It is pretty hilarious, actually, to me. Especially if you consider the hot dog eating on the wall that said courage.
Yeah.
Try to say it's better to eat food even though it's shaped like a turd than an actual turd.
Right, okay.
But I could see where he could have had that come up as a thing because they lived in the sewer, we found out at the end of season 2 or at beginning of season 1 or season 3 here. I'm all over the place. Because they lived in the sewer during that whole time.
Oh, yeah, during when the heads took over or something, right?
Yeah, exactly. When the Galactic Empire
took Empire. Over. Yeah, okay. Gotcha. So
maybe he just developed a taste for it.
Yeah, maybe I just didn't pick up on that. So, I can see that. So that's a remnant from... Okay, so there's actually some continuity there. I was just thinking back because they had the whole Doofus Rick thing where he was taunted by the other Ricks for eating poop in his dimension.
Yeah,
I was like, okay, well that's that's funny. But then when it apparently lots of people now suddenly eat poop, I was just like it seemed like a joke beneath them, even though like as far as I regard the writers as such, it just seemed like such an easy, like just a joke beneath the level of writing.
Well, it's an easy out. It's an easy out, and it is. Eating poop is always funny when you accuse someone of eating poop. I'm 2 years younger than you, but I still laugh like a 6-year-old whenever I hear it.
And I guess if they cleverly disguised it by kind of making it part of continuity because they lived in the sewer, so that would explain the affinity for doing such an act. Okay, I'll give him a pass. It just at the time, it struck me as weird. It just struck me as odd, is all. That's all. It just struck me as odd. I like how Beth is not impressed with therapy herself.
No, she's not. I think it's because a lot of it got thrown back on her, where she wasn't expecting it. She was just expecting to talk about, huffing...
why everybody else is fucked up, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Not necessarily how her actions and decisions have possibly made them fucked up. She doesn't want to hear that. She just wants to. Pretty much, she was there to like grandstand, right? She wanted to be in a position to be like, aha, like I told you so, like I'm great. Fuck you, you suck, right?
Right. She didn't want to hear her own problems, but I also think that goes back to just her and Rick's dynamic. Mm-hmm. They're both. Really, shit. She's a bad mom. Beth is a bad mom. She's an alcoholic. She kind of doesn't pay attention to stuff. And Jerry was there as a voice of reason that she just completely cut out all the time. Because she was living in her own world being selfish, just like her father. Lives in his own world and is selfish and just uses people for whatever means he needs to do. She didn't want that thrown back in her face. She wasn't expecting that at all. So she instantly got pissed off and defensive. And it really just, I could see that's where I could see the next few episode arc going, is just her kind of realizing that she is kind of a shitty person.
Yeah.
Where she'd always been, at least relatable person before.
Right. And there was hints of it when in the Doctor the Mr. Poopy Butthole episode, where if it had like the bad memory was her coming into Beth's room all hammered.
Right.
Such, and then she accidentally, or Summer, she goes into Summer's room all hammered, and then she accidentally gives Summer a black eye with the with the bottle of wine before school.
Yeah, because it was picture day.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was always hinted at in the episodes, but I guess this season will really bring it to light.
Correct. That's where I'm seeing it going anyway.
One of the things that struck me about this season 2 is it's yet another transformation episode.
Okay.
Last season they had a transformation episode as well, right? With Tiny Rick. Was that in the first season or second season?
I think that's 2. Pretty sure that's 2.
Right. So I wonder if there's going to be some sort of weird transformation episode going forward, like if that'll just be a yearly thing.
Well, I could, just because it's something fun and weird to do. It's an easy way to also get whatever storyline you want to get across. Just to completely change everything and throw something fucked up in there.
Right.
Just like they do with interdimensional cable.
Right.
They've had that show up in the last 2 seasons just because it was fun throwaway to stupid stuff, hilariously stupid stuff.
Just something out of the ordinary and even more ridiculous for an already ridiculous show.
Yeah.
Some of the character models of the Russian agents crack me up. Not the main guy with the glasses, but his head henchman, his face was on crooked. Did you notice
there's
that?
There's a lot of crooked faces, big noses, and unibrows.
Right.
I know, for all the Russian agents, presumably Russian or Eastern European. I don't know.
Right. Great action sequence between Jaguar and Rick. Rick, the whole rat exoskeleton, and then weaponry. It's awesome how it went from completely stupid concept to how is Rick going to get out of this, so he creates the exosuit. And it's this big, crazy explosion of violence that kind of moves the story forward. But then it just goes full-fledged, like, 80s action movie.
It turns into, like, Die Hard almost, or something like that.
Right. Even with the classic, the villain and the the protagonist kind of discussing with each other, like, about, what led them to their current situations, so they briefly get a level of understanding between them.
Yeah, and what a coincidence that Rick came out in that toilet of all the toilets in the area that he came to.
Yeah, he was always quick with a witty quip too. He was always quick with a comeback.
Well, he knows what he's doing, man. When it comes to murdering in an exosuit.
Mm-hmm. Also, he's really awesome at harnessing the power of AA batteries. Right?
Yeah, that laser.
Right?
Shot through like 3 of the agents' heads and cut off 3 different people's legs all at the same time.
Through walls and steel beams and such.
Yeah. Good for him.
You would think Rick should be rich by now. With what he can do with just simple objects, you would think he'd be... Actually, he might be rich, right?
Well, to be able to get all this stuff without just going to other dimensions and stealing it, very much so. I mean, you've got to be able to get this stuff from somewhere. So and maybe it's all background.
Yeah, and it seems like a good portion of his background, he was an alien drug runner and an alien weapons smuggler. And he was trying to steal... he was trying to steal the energy... What was that, from isotopes from last episode? So maybe in some other dimension he's just exceedingly wealthy, but he hides out on our Earth's dimension.
I could see that. He also, I would guess, well, I mean, continuity and such, it wouldn't make sense. But that the laser that he made could have something to do with that a chip of the rock that he stole from the last episode.
Yeah.
But I mean, how is Pickle Rick going to carry that? He doesn't have any pockets.
Rick is very almost omnipotent. He always seems to have the plan. He always seems to be able to see everybody's move ahead of time, and he always seems to have on hand exactly what he needs to get things done.
Yeah, especially using office supplies too. I mean, I've made a bow and arrow and a crossbow out of office supplies before, but never a laser. So good for him.
You're not trying hard enough.
Obviously.
Poor Jaguar just wanted to see his daughter and tell her that he loves her.
Yeah, she was unfortunately kidnapped and murdered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which, tale as old as time there.
Mm-hmm. And you kind of get a soft moment from Rick when they're discussing that. He kind of shows, because one of the things about Rick is real Ricks don't care about their family, but our Rick seems to care about his family, even though he's had to kind of piece it together from other dimensions.
Right, even though, he notes in the helicopter that he has infinite families, infinite daughters, all that kind of stuff. He still obviously does care about Beth. That was his whole reason for coming back and kicking Jerry out, and he always really wanted to play with her and have her be part of his life, whether he wants to really show it or not.
And he gave Jaguar just a slight glimpse of hope when Jaguar puts two and two together. He's wait a minute, do I have infinite daughters? No. Nope, just me.
Sorry. Yep. Sorry.
Such a dick.
Yep. Well, that would have taken too much time. He already said he only had like 7 minutes to live. So
yeah. I like when they injured each other, he repaired himself with mustard.
Yeah, a tomato and then some mustard, and then he stapled a pickle to himself, just like a skin graft, essentially.
Right? Yeah, that's all it is, man.
And, yep, the same way. What Jaguar used the bullets to cauterize his wound, the gunpowder, put it in there. It's essentially the same thing, just pickle form.
It was revealed that the motivations for the actions of the children that bring the family to counseling. Summer just wants to get high, dude.
Yeah, she's not taking the divorce well. So we found out the last episode, too.
And why did Morty pee his pants in class? Did I miss something? Did they show that or explain that? Or it's just left hanging out there that he peed himself in class?
The way I took from it is that he didn't just pee his pants. He actually peed on the floor. So he took out his dong and peed on the floor under his desk in class.
All right.
And the motivation for that, was not said, but I guess you could infer that he's just attention-seeking due to the family crisis that's going on.
It's funny that they would bring him to counseling for that when Summer has been well known to pee her pants or pee on herself.
Yes.
In very normal situations. Like locked in an elevator, she had already peed on herself. And she even volunteered to pee on the picture of a child with the buckethead guy from last episode.
Yeah, there's a lot of pee stuff that goes on with Summer. I didn't put that together before.
Right. Maybe that's just, I guess, what she's into.
Yeah. She's not a poop eater, so she's got to be doing something else, right?
Right. You got to be somewhat disgusting in other ways, for sure. Susan Sarandon, she was the therapist, and man, I was listening to her dialogue. Work phone. I was listening to her dialogue, and I remember sitting there thinking, how do writers write dialogue like that? They must contact some therapists and kind of question them how they would respond to somebody trying to avoid questioning into their own psyche by diminishing the therapist themselves.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, they probably had some consults or something like that, but I don't know. To be honest, it kind of hit close to home. Hearing some of that stuff.
It did.
Yeah, a little bit. Just compensation things for whatever's going on, and then her introspective Rick view in things. It just, I don't know. It just touched a nerve with me for some reason.
Oh.
And I don't know why. But I mean, it was totally well written and made sense both ways.
Well, see, that's what makes the show so good. Its premise is insane. It's a lot of it's like absolutely ridiculous. There's tons of immature humor, but it could be a very deep show at times. In this episode, I think everybody, when they saw Pickle Rick, they probably thought that they were going to some sort of like VeggieTales universe or something, right?
I like to think that this is just a spin-off of VeggieTales. Now that you say that, this whole episode.
Rick. Well, VeggieTales, that's a Christian cartoon, right? Didn't it start as it started as a Christian cartoon, and Rick is probably the villain. Pickle Rick is probably the villain of VeggieTales. Like, while all the VeggieTales that we see are living their life and trying to overcome minor obstacles to their happiness, there's people like Pickle Rick out there just mass murdering vegetables.
Yeah, and that's more than just the people who are cutting them up to eat them.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
and enjoy their delicious nutrition.
But, right? I think when everybody saw that, I feel that's where everybody thought it would go. Because as far as funny, it was very humorous, but I don't think it was one of the funniest episodes. It was just kind of just an insane premise for an action show. Entertaining as fuck. Entertaining as just about any episode of Rick and Morty. But I think a lot of people expected it to be this grand, hilarious thing when they saw that, Rick turns himself into a pickle. There's going to be some hilarious-ass hijinks that will ensue. And that kind of never happened. Right. And that never happened. It was just more like, oh, look how depressing this family actually is. And Rick's just going to murder a lot of people.
Yeah, it was the dichotomy of the episode is what kind of struck me more. Mm-hmm. That it was going toward, the ultra-violence action movie that doesn't care about anything.
Mm-hmm.
Your stereotype, like you said, of an 80s action film. Or,
right.
Like I said, Die Hardy, whatever the hell's going on. And then back to the therapist office, where they're actually hitting on some real stuff. Right. And one of the underlying pieces I thought would be control that they were putting in there, because Beth is not in control of her family. She's not really in control of her own life because she's given up. Rick lies to her and she's okay with it. Her kids kind of do whatever they want and disappear for however long. She couldn't control Jerry, even though he was totally controllable. Because he was such a huge pussy.
That's an excellent point. Of all people she should have been able to control, it's Jerry.
Right. And then on the other side of that, Rick got into the whole rat exosuit situation because he was trying to control not having to go to therapy and deal with that. And then the cat showed up. It rained. He dried out. It rained. He fell into the sewer and had to kind of dig himself out. Yeah. So he was out of control for a while and then put himself back into control and was able to dig himself out of it. But I just thought that was a kind of an underlying theme of the whole episode is control.
I also find it interesting that someone like Rick, who, when you look at his character on his surface, you would think would just be capable of just outright refusing going to counseling. But instead, he tries to create this elaborate situation where, because his whole ploy was, oh man, look what I did, boy, that's screwed up. It's going to take me a while to fix this, like his whole ploy was to essentially trap himself, and then even though he had the fix predetermined, fix himself to get out of counseling instead of just outright refusing to go.
Right, so and I think that has to do with him not wanting to disappoint Beth, because of their broken relationship. Because he does care about her. He wanted to find an excuse, and his only excuses he can come up with are insane.
Right. So yeah, by having this weird, because he creates the extenuating circumstance, so he can't be blamed for not going to counseling.
Right. It's just something out of his control. He just accidentally, purposely turned himself into a pickle.
Right. Well, I'm a scientist, and I do crazy stuff. Because she tries to.
Because she did know. Yeah, because she did know what ultimately was in the syringe and what the purpose of it was.
Mm-hmm.
So she was controlling the situation by really punishing Rick in the only way she knew how, because she couldn't really get mad at him personally, even though she was mad. She was like, "Well, you're going to stay like this," kind of like teaching a dog or a kid a terrible lesson, or in a terrible way at least.
Do you think she
you're
really
gonna have to deal with this now?
Do you think she really didn't know that what was in the syringe, or do you think she was in denial and knew what was in the syringe but wouldn't accept it until she heard it from him?
I would guess she was in denial about it. She actually knew.
Right, because
that's the reason. That's the whole reason she took it, and that's the whole reason she raised her hand and then put it back down when the therapist asked about it.
Right, she just wants to hear Rick say it, because then he has to confront the fact that he's a huge dick.
Right, it's all denial.
It's all denial, indeed. But it was fun to see Rick get his ass handed to him by the therapist, because he finally makes his way there after the super awesome, bloody day. He must have killed 100 people that day, an untold number of rats.
Well, untold number of rats, but I think there were only 26 or 28 actual agents in there, and then the head guy. So it wasn't untold, but I mean the number of rats in a sewer. Yeah, that was probably in the hundreds of thousands, just based upon the structure he had to put together in just a few minutes.
Right.
As we pointed out before, depending on how long the therapy session in the weight room was.
Right, I think I counted. There was essentially 4 different Rube Goldberg devices that he built for various means. The first one makes sense, because I get his half-ass, alarm triggered, the scissors, which cut the syringe, which would have fallen into him.
Uh-huh.
I get how he did that, because obviously he did that pre-thumb. And then as the show went on, he built 2 of them without thumbs. And then I'm assuming by the end of it, he had a thumb, because he built the crazy rat exosuit.
Yeah, and how many of those did he build in that facility? Mm-hmm. Between doors.
Right.
When they were tracing his call and they entered the door, and the first guy just got his head exploded, and then he had the punji stick pit below that. I mean, there were just crazy contraptions all over the place, thrown together in a few minutes.
Pretty
by
impressive.
A man rat, a pickle man rat.
By a pickle man rat. I think
yes.
But that, perhaps maybe that's something we should all aspire to be, because Rick, as a pickle man rat, accomplished quite a bit in the span of a few hours.
A lot more than I've done.
Yeah,
today.
Right?
So
again,
good for him.
You mentioned it was my birthday. A lot more than I've done in 37 years. And it's funny because it's true, sad and true. Yeah. So overall, I don't think the episode was exactly what I thought it was going to be. Definitely, humorous, but not funny. That's how I would explain it.
It was entertaining, and it had its one-off laughs here and there. It was more of outside of the action sequence, it was just more contemplative of an episode than it was just I don't know how to describe it. Just the ridiculous mishmash you normally get that just ties itself up in the end. This was obviously both. This was more both far ends of that spectrum.
Right, and I guess for as ridiculous as the premise and everything is, it had a lot of levity, I think is what you're trying to say. It had a lot of...
Yeah.
It kind of brought everything home in a nice little package, gave a lot of character development to Rick and Beth and their relationship in particular. Not Jerry so much.
No. Not at all, actually.
Poor Jerry. Totally my favorite character. Now, I missed it. You said that he had a voice clip. What was his voice clip? I thought he wasn't in this episode at all.
It sounded like one of the agents, if I remember correctly, was Chris Parnell's voice, doing a terrible Russian accent.
Oh, so instead of having the character of Jerry, he just stepped in and to do another character, so he got his voice fees.
Right, because he still had to get paid for the episode, and they already threw out a bunch of money to Danny Trejo. To be the Jaguar and Susan Sarandon.
Right. Very guest star heavy episode then. I guess I didn't realize Danny Trejo. He's one of those voices. I was sitting there watching it, trying to figure out why that guy sounded familiar. And I saw because it's Danny.
It's because he was that guy.
Yeah.
That is Danny Trejo if he was Colombian or whatever he's supposed to be.
All right. Fair enough. Those were our thoughts on episode 303. I really enjoyed it. Man, I don't know. It's so different. I'm going to have to watch this one again. I probably watch it again here as I kind of do some more work. But I feel like I'm not sure if I understood everything that was going on or if I understand nothing that went on in this episode.
This is definitely a kind of bridging episode, like you said. I think this episode was a character building episode, since most of his subplot was just action movie, but really setting some groundwork for where the rest of their family is mentally. The Smith family is mentally. One thing I did want to mention too is Concerto.
Oh man, I was so disappointed in that.
The fact that it just ended up being a short post-credit sequence instead of, we thought it was going to be part of the Vindicator episode, which looks like that's the next episode. It was kind of sad that that's how it worked out, but I'm glad to see that the Jag could get some payback, and fill his blood debt that he had to Rick. So good for him. But we're only down to a few things outside of the previews that came out, or the whatever you want to call it, the third season trailer. That was one of the big ones that was in there, was Concerto, obviously Pickle Rick, and a bunch of stuff from episode 1 and 2. The only things we haven't seen are the Vindicators, and when Jerry's going around they're at whatever amusement park planet that they're on. And I think that pretty much seals it up. So, yeah, it just kind of popped up out of nowhere. I enjoyed actually seeing the whole fruition of the short little sequence. But, yeah, it was disappointing to know that was more of a just throwaway joke than it was anything as ridiculous as we thought about. But that goes again to show, just like with this episode and Rick Mancing the Stone, that, you really can't predict what the hell's going to go on with this show as much as you want to try. Like, shit's just going to happen.
Yep, that's it.
Shit's just going to happen.
Yep. That's I guess that's true. And that's why we watch it every week, and that is why we talk about it every week here on A Plumbus Among Us, the rickest Rick and Morty podcast. Please make sure that you follow us on Twitter at A Plumbus Among Us. Tell us why we suck. Tell us why we're awesome. Tell them your thoughts about or tell us your thoughts about the show. Make sure to participate on the TV Time app. Thousands of people on there talking about Rick and Morty, posting memes, giving video reactions, all that good stuff. The TV Time app, make sure to get that on your smartphone. Check us out on Nothing Important Podcasts, and of course, It's All Good Men, all available on iTunes and wherever you listen to podcasts, pretty much, even YouTube.
Yeah? Well, maybe we can get some YouTube comments on these shits then.
Oh, fuck yeah, playa. I actually have a YouTube comment from YouTube. Simba Trace says, I can't wait for more of these. I love this shit.
Well, fantastic.
We love doing this shit. We love talking to you folks. And Jeff, of course, we love talking about the Moon Man.
Would you shut the fuck up about the Moon Man?